Good afternoon. I am Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Thank you for joining us today for this important announcement about protecting affordable housing. I am joined today by members of the District Attorney's Office, including Kofi Sanskalat, the Chief of our Financial Frauds Bureau, Hope Kornstein, the Deputy Chief of our Financial Frauds Bureau, Lana Wong, Senior Financial Investigator, and Chike Ibabuche, the Chief of our Housing and Tenant Protection Unit. I'm also pleased to be joined by DOI Commissioner Jocelyn Strauber. DOI was a critical partner in this investigation. Teamwork is essential to bringing these types of complex cases. Last week, and some of you were there, I stood with elected officials, legal service providers, and advocates as we announced the creation of our first ever Housing and Tenant Protection Unit. I spoke about how New York's challenging real estate market, which is setting records for all-time rent increases, and has emboldened unscrupulous landlords and developers, how we needed to police that space to stop the exploitation of tenants. We said we would take action to protect affordable housing tenants who bear the brunt of this crisis, and today we're doing just that. In court earlier today, we unsealed 5 indictments against 6 developers and their associated corporations, which included charges of grand larceny and the city criminal tax code. Our court papers detailed an alleged scheme to defraud the 421A program. That program was one of New York's premier vehicles for creating affordable housing. This conduct, we allege, resulted not only in $1.6 million in illegal tax abatements through the 421A program, but also exorbitant rents in more than 20 units that were specifically designated as affordable. This alleged fraud impacted 6 different buildings throughout Brooklyn. The 421 program trades tax abatements to property owners in exchange for allocating a certain percentage of the building's apartments to affordable tenants. Tenants, in turn, can apply for these affordable units through the city housing lottery. Developers must submit paperwork with income levels of prospective applicants to HPT for approval. Those city offices are located here in Manhattan. Only those tenants approved by HPD can reside in these affordable housing units. Yet, we allege these developers did not wait for HPD to approve the applicants and these tenants. Instead, they went ahead and began renting the units to others, many of them at substantially higher rates than would have been allowed. This illegal activity was perpetuated for years because the developers filed false paperwork to the city and state indicating falsely that they were following all appropriate guidelines. In the meantime, we had more than 20 units that were supposed to be rented at affordable rates that were sometimes rented more than $1,000 above the statutory threshold. In some instances, they rushed out the tenants that were paying higher rates for, quote, affordable tenants in order to avoid detection from authorities. Clearly that did not work. That is why we are here today, because of the great work of career investigators and prosecutors unearthing this fraud and bringing this case. In addition to the rents, the developers profited on the backs of the tenants and the city, reaping hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax abatements. Make no mistake, though the 421A program ended earlier this year, developers are still benefiting from these property tax abatements, and we will continue to do this type of work. When we have a housing crisis like we have right now, every single unit of affordable housing counts. There are families who rely on these units as lifelines to make ends meet, and I would say by extension, our communities suffer when we lose these housing units. This is exactly the type of systemic, complex, widespread criminal conduct that when we stood together last week, we announced the creation of our Housing and Tenant Protection Unit. This is exactly the kind of conduct that we talked about that we would do. Work focused on conduct defrauding government programs or those engaging in illegal and dangerous construction to push out rent-stabilized tenants. So we have a lot of work ahead of us to do, but today we pause to announce this very important step in this case and to hold those accountable who we charged. As I said initially, it's my true honor to work side by side with a longtime friend and colleague in Commissioner Strauber, and I now call her to the podium.
Thank you, District Attorney Bragg, and to your dedicated prosecutors, thank you for your partnership on this important case. I also want to thank HPD Commissioner Adolfo Carrion Jr. and his team for referring allegations to DOI, which prompted our investigation. This indictment demonstrates what city agencies and law enforcement can accomplish when they work together to expose wrongdoing and hold accountable those who would use public assistance programs, such as the Affordable Housing Program here, to enrich themselves at the expense of those New Yorkers who desperately need those programs. The 421A tax incentive program exists to help those who qualify for affordable housing by offering incentives to developers and landlords to encourage the building of affordable housing units. As charged in this indictment, instead of abiding by the rules of that program, these defendants misrepresented to the city that they were renting to income-qualified tenants at reduced affordable housing rates when, in fact, the tenants had not been screened to determine if they were qualified and they were paying higher rents. These tactics allowed the defendants to pocket more than $1.6 million in illegal property tax benefits, according to the charges. The charged conduct harms the city in more than one way. It not only removes accessible units from the housing market, hurting those who qualify and are most in need of affordable housing, it reduces the city's revenue base by illegally reducing the taxes paid by developers and landlords. I'm proud to be here today with our partners at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office who are committed to exposing and stopping this fraud and corruption. Working together, we will continue to protect affordable housing benefits for eligible and authorized New Yorkers and hold accountable those who exploit those tax credits for their personal gain. Finally, I want to thank the DOI team that tirelessly worked this case, Investigative Auditor Giorgio Petriashvili, Special Investigator Eric Johnson, Examining Attorney Mark Asa, all under the supervision of Inspector General Michael Morris, as well as Deputy Commissioner and the Chief of Investigations Dominic Zarella, and First Deputy Commissioner Dan Court. Thank you.
Thank you.